Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's look into South Sydney Rabbitohs 2024 fixture. South Sydney's pre-season challenge is as follows. Game number 1 is the Charity Shield up against the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Rabbitohs will be leaving for Vegas in week number 2 of the preseason challenge, so I reckon maybe the likes of a Latrell Mitchell, if he's able to play, even maybe a Jack Whiten to a degree, because it's a trial game. If they're allowed to participate, they might be able to. And then in week number 2, they are going to be hosting the Sydney Roosters out at Belmore Oval. That is a weird ground to host this game, man. Don't think I've seen it before. I don't think we've ever seen it before. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the preseason challenge for the Rabbits, it's the Charity Shield in week 1, and it's the arch enemy in week number 2. South Sydney are one of 2 teams to be honoured to play the first ever NRL game in the United States for the Las Vegas Games. They are taking on the Manly Sea Eagles and are technically the away side in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The likes of a Jack Whiten may be allowed to play a trial game. That is just trial game, but he will be suspended for this contest. I think Latrell Mitchell may be suspended, or maybe he served his time with the Kangaroos. But the Rabbits might be coming into this game a little bit underdone, but hey, it's 1 month away. We'll wait till team lists until I put out a friggin' tip. Then their next game comes in round number 2, and they are taking on another Las Vegas combatant, but this time in the form of the Brisbane Broncos, and they are away from home once more. It is up at Suncorp Stadium, Thursday night footy. Once again, I do like that the 4 teams who played in Las Vegas, they're all playing each other inside the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I really like how the NRL have done that. But this game, Thursday night footy, up against the Broncos at Suncorp. In round number 3, it is the greatest rivalry in rugby league across the planet. It's Friday night football, Roosters versus Rabbits at Allianz Stadium. So South's start to the season, 3 major trips away from home. In round number 4, Good Friday, it is finally their first home game for 2024. Souths versus the Bulldogs, Friday, Good Friday afternoon football kickoff at 3 p.m. And the first section for 2024 for South Sydney is a much deserved second home game, back-to-back weeks. This time against the New Zealand Warriors, Saturday, 3 p.m. That shapes as an early year blockbuster. That already looks really important and really enticing. So the strength of schedule is pretty massive. It's definitely up there for equal first at the very least. It is second hardest from what I've seen so far. Trip to Las Vegas, trip to Brisbane, and then a trip to Allianz Stadium. Mind you, some South Sydney fans would banter that is their home ground. But there are going to be a few wins in this section. South Sydney may be a little bit hotter to trot in 2024 than what they were in 2023. Phase number 2 for 2024 starts again at Accor Stadium. So it's 3 straight away games for the Rabbits, followed by 3 straight home games for South Sydney. But phase number 2 of their year starts Saturday night football, again out at Sydney Olympic Park against the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. They then have their first bye for 2024. And speaking of firsts, they travel down to Melbourne, Amy Park, Thursday night football, Anzac Day, the first time that these 2 sides will have met on Anzac Day. That's huge. 1 week later, they host the Penrith Panthers at Sydney Olympic Park for Thursday night footy. And phase 2 for their year, well, section number 2 I should say, rounds out with a trip to Cogra for the second time this year technically. First in the regular season, where they take on the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Again, with all due respect, besides the game against the Dragons, a trip down to Amy Park, hosting the Panthers and the Sharks outfit that could produce anything on their day. Wow, that first 10 weeks, besides maybe 2 games, bloody hell, that is a rough start. And it only gets tougher for South Sydney as Section 3 for their campaign starts with Saturday night football. They're the home side, I should say, up at Suncorp Stadium, and they take on the North Queensland Cowboys. The second time these two sides have met as a part of Magic Round. They did battle, I think it was the first edition of Magic Round in Australia. But Rabbits Cowboys kicks off South Sydney's third phase for 2024. They have 7 days off, and then they host the Parramatta Eels. The home game, the home venue, has not been selected yet for South Sydney. I think it will be much or less the same, that it will be actually at Allianz Stadium to host the Parramatta Eels. But this is happening Saturday, 7:30 p.m. I think this will be an Origin-affected game. If not, the week after will be, but they don't have to worry too much about that, because round number 13, their second bye drops for South Sydney Rabbitohs. Round number 14, they're back on the plane, zipping up to Queensland once more to take on the Gold Coast Titans in a game that seemingly these days ends up both teams score well over 20 points each, sometimes even over 30 points each. So that could be a high-scoring, highly entertaining clash. And phase number 3 for their year rounds out with a home game against the Brisbane Broncos on Friday night footy. Not many 5-day turnarounds for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, but they are on the plane a hell of a lot in the first half at the very least for 2024. So they got home games against the Eels and the Broncos, an away trip to the Gold Coast, and a home game in Brisbane against the North Queensland Cowboys. Again, while Origin does start or has already started within this section, there's definitely no easy games here for South Sydney. Round 16 through to round 20 is phase 4, and round 16 starts on Saturday night at Sydney Olympic Park, where they host the Sea Eagles. Then they have their third and final bye, and that is definitely the earliest time where I've seen so far of all the teams I've overlooked. Their third and final bye comes the earliest of anyone that I've seen so far in 2024. Round 18, it's all systems go for them, really, for their run to the finals from round 18, really, where they take on the Parramatta Eels at CommBank Stadium. They then, again, are on the plane, zipping up to KO Stadium, Redcliffe, where there will not be a spare seat in the house. That joint will be absolutely spilling over as they take on the Redcliffe Dolphins on Thursday night football. And in round number 20 to round out phase number 5, it's not a plane trip, but it's certainly a trip up north on the bus. They have taken a home game to Industry Group Stadium, Gosford, where they host the West Tigers. While the strength of opposition is definitely something that they can deal with, again, it's still a lot of zipping around for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and this team could finish minor premiers, or they could finish 10th. So this season, the strength of schedule so far is intense, but then again, the South Sydney Rabbitohs outfit could only drop 3 games inside the first 20 weeks. Such is the immense amount of skill and talent inside that playing roster. If it all clicks, I mean, wow, they're going to go extremely deep once again in September. But that rounds out phase number 4 for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now that Origin is well and truly behind the South Sydney Rabbitohs, they are all systems go for the run to the finals, and it starts in round 21. Their 5th and final phase for the regular season starts with an away trip down to Canberra to take on the Canberra Raiders on Sunday twilight, for a Sunday twilight fixture, and that will be huge because, touch wood, Jack Whiten is injury free, but that will be the first time that Jack Whiten will play up against his old side, and it will be happening down in his old home stomping ground. 1 week later, on Saturday Night Football, they again are away, but not too much of a travel this time. They are zipping down to the Shire to take on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Round number 23, this is a short turnaround for the Rabbitohs. They host the Melbourne Storm on Thursday Night Football. Round number 24, they are away out west to take on the West Tigers at Campbelltown Stadium on Saturday Night Football, and this will be one of those free-to-air Saturday Night Football games. Round number 25, they're back at Accor Stadium. They host the Newcastle Knights. In round 26, the penultimate round, they are away out west again, but this time it's against the champions, the Golden West, the Penrith Panthers. Friday Night Football Channel 9 game that could be absolutely enormous. And in round 27, the final round of the year, what else? Friday night footy out at Accor Stadium against the Eastern Suburbs. In that final phase there, they have 4 away games out of the remaining 7. And keep in mind that their third and final bye came about 2 weeks prior to round 21 as well. While there is a game against the Tigers and the Raiders, that Raiders game is down in Canberra. The Tigers, they've given the Rabbits a bit of curry over the years, but as I said just before, this South Sydney Rabbitohs outfit, if everything's clicking for them, if the bounce back factor redemption story is there after they dropped dramatically, a massive fall from grace last year, and if Latrell Mitchell, Jack Whiten and everybody else is all firing on all cylinders, then this team is top 4. This team is absolutely top 4. But this run for the Rabbits is tough, especially those last 2 games, man. Panthers and Roosters, I mean, they'll be fighting to make the top 4. They'll be fighting to have a home final from 5th or 6th, or just to make it. They've got to try and beat, the 2 huge heavyweights of the competition to do so. So all in all, man, South Sydney, it's a tough draw. It really is, for a team that didn't finish inside the top 8 as well. I know South Sydney are quote unquote a glamour club, but for a side that didn't finish inside the top 8 in 2023, boy howdy, they've been given a champions fixture just quietly. I think their most promising section will come probably after their third and final bye, to be honest with you. While they are away in 3 of the next 4 games after their third and final bye, some of the opposition they can deal with. But I mean, I'm just actually overlooking it once more. So round 17, their third and final bye comes, and then it's away to the Eels, away to the Dolphins. They take a home game to Gosford, then they're away to Canberra, and then they're away to Cronulla. They host the Storm. They're then away to the Tigers, but then they host Newcastle, away at Penrith, and then they host the Eastern Suburbs. Man, if they make the top 8, even if they make the top 4, even if they make the top 8, they well and truly deserve it. Wow, that's going to be huge. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. Hope you're enjoying the Overlook series, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.